if it takes a half hour to make one burger, it can also take a half hour to make 100 burgers, or that same half hour for 1,000 burgers. So it really, to me, it comes down to the ability of the owner, of the leader, to see the long-term vision.
Why do growing businesses go broke? Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast. I'm Rocky Lalavani, and I help 7- and 8-figure business owners scale profits and cash flow while working less. Every week, we dig into proven methods like the Profit First system, other cash flow strategies, and real execution. No accounting jargon, no fluff. If you're going to be the backbone of America, creating jobs and serving your mission, you deserve to be well rewarded. We're Profit First certified professionals. If you want the masterclass, check out episodes 2 through 13, including Mike Michalowicz, where I break down the entire Profit First book, chapter by chapter. If you want, grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint book at profitcomesfirst.com and start making profit a habit today. You built this business to serve your mission and your freedom. Let's make sure it pays you back. We also offer strategic tax planning and preparation to help you keep more of that profit. Now let's dive in. Couple of quick reminders before we get started. If you are looking for a strategic tax partner, my wife is now taking on clients and you get a little bit of me as well. So if you're looking for that, reach out to us. The other thing is I've updated the Profit Blueprint book. It's still free. If you've never got it, sign up at the bottom left of the website, profitcomesfirst.com, and you can get the free updated book. And with that, let's talk about our guest. If you're a founder or operator of your business and you feel busy, but profit isn't where it should be, that's our episode. My guest is Rion Westfall. He is founder of the Own Your Revenue program. It's built specifically for people like you to tactically hunt revenue patterns that can expedite 7- to 8-figure growth. He's not your average entrepreneur. He's a battle-tested builder with a path that's anything but conventional. He's done specialty projects with the Department of Defense as a mechanical engineer. He's scaled companies internationally. He's worked in 15 countries, multilingual. He's built 9 companies. And today we're going to show you how to do it. Systems, accountability, and ownership without having to micromanage or crack the whip. We're going to talk about the right people in the right seats with the right systems. And if you need help with this, that's what I do. We help you figure these out, at least to the point where we need to bring in sometimes an expert like Rion to do his part of it. Let's meet him and see how it's done. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Rion Westfall. It's great to have you join us.
Rocky, it's a pleasure. Grateful to be here.
And I'm excited to learn from you. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
About myself and my business. My name is Rion Westfall. I'm actually in the Texas area, and my business is 537BD, or business development. By trade, I'm a mechanical engineer in business, traveled the world, worked in 15 different countries. And with that, kind of taken those learnings in business development and managing and performing audits and evaluations on businesses throughout the world, and migrated that into a process that I call the Own Your Revenue process. And that process is focused on helping business leaders and owners to tactically hunt revenue patterns that expedite 7+ figure growth.
I find whenever I talk to engineers, we can talk about systems and they'll actually implement them and create them and make them work.
That's a trait, right?
It's a trait. And when they're not engineers, they look at me like I don't know, that I have like 4 eyes or something. But the reality is that is what drives business. You know, it's funny because I was we're going to be working on our YouTube channel. And one of the stories that came up with it was about creating systems. And it's like McDonald's figured out how they can put a teenager in their business and run it. And they can even have teenagers manage a $500,000, $2 million operation. And it's like, why is that they can do that and we can't? And it's because they've taken the time and the effort and the work to build out phenomenal systems. And that's what we need to do. Build systems, keep tweaking them until they run well. And then you can plug anybody you want into the system. And you'll know within a day, either you can run the system or you can't. You can't buy next.
I love that example because I've actually used that many times. There was one point in time where I worked in DoD, Department of Defense, at Raytheon Missile Systems, and it's a necessary requirement, right? When you're building, when you're designing, when you're testing, everything has a procedure. Step A, step B, step C, because if one chance you're gone, the next person can step in, they can pick up. Things can be done with repetitiveness, right? Because being able to repeat things, that's the definition of scaling in essence. And McDonald's did exactly that. You're 100%. How do you make the Big Mac? Well, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this, and it's the same everywhere you go. So you're 100% spot on. Agreed.
So you said you worked in 15 countries. You've worked around the world, seeing different businesses. From an engineering mindset, what did you find?
Part of what I found is often there's a couple of things. One of the things that comes to mind is the aspect of accountability, right? In businesses, and this is irrespective of the culture that I was in, irrespective of the language barriers or the different pieces that existed, whether I was working with a night crew, whether I was working with a day crew. Some of my audits would be 4 days long, some of it would be 4 weeks long, just depended. But almost everywhere I went, when there was the greater the amount of chaos, the greater the amount of or lack of accountability amongst its people, amongst the leadership, as well as the people that are working, your standard laborers, your people on the floor, the employees, the team members. I would often see on a regular basis that there was very minimal accountability for the problem being solved by that individual, by their role, by their task, whatever the case is. There just lacked the ability to hold accountable that person to any result, to any end result. And in your case, as you've very well pointed out, the profit, right? The profit of a business. So that would be one that comes to mind at the moment.
Let's define accountability. What does that actually mean in practical terms in these companies? Like, what is it that was different that made that the case?
Accountability, I think, is probably the biggest driver to culture within a business. And when you ask what is accountability, most of the time I get the feeling, and this is from experience, that when people talk about accountability, it has a negative connotation about it, right? People think, oh, it's accountability. This person's going to make me do this, going to make me do this, going to make me do that. There's a certain element of accountability that people just naturally shy away from because of its negative feeling. And to the opposite, if we look at true accountability, accountability is just a form of engagement. Whether or not somebody's actually engaging in a practice, whether or not they're actually mentally disciplined to engage in the activity that they're doing, to use their cognitive ability to improve whatever task it is that they're working on, so that they look at it and say, hey, there's a better way to do this. Maybe if I did it with my left instead of my right, I can speed up this. I can, whatever the case is, when they engage in it, that's when I find true self-accountability, right? And actually people, like I said, it's the number one driver for culture in my mind for companies to actually succeed. When you have that accountability, self accountability, when it's understood truly, and it's maybe the word is it's enhanced, it's motivated, it's promoted by the individuals, by the leadership, that engagement. That's when accountability has the ability to actually start having a positive effect on any business.
So, in the back of my mind, my thought is, how do I, as the business owner, get these people to do what I say and be accountable without me having to walk around and whip everybody like I do every day?
Oh, that is, here when I started this venture, this is my 9th business venture that I've been a part of. And when I started this, it started with the idea that I'm going to write a book. And you've already written books. You're already well versed with that. This is my first, so I have not got that experience yet. But as I set out here in 2024, I said, hey, I'm going to write a book. And then you start putting together, hey, what am I going to write about? Chapter 1, chapter 2, process, whatever it is that you're going to write about. And I was no different as I was going through it. And I realized, well, dang, I need some actual case studies. I need some live samples. I need some testimonials. So at the end of 24, I just started going through LinkedIn contacts. Hey, could I interview for a book? And well, what did that interview mean? I basically took the process that I was developing and I said, hey, I want to basically try it out on you. Let's walk through the process and you give me your feedback. And as I started doing that, of course, I was refining my own process for that book writing. But fast forward here, I realized after doing multiple of these interviews and actually getting some clients from this, I realized that question that you asked me right now, as an owner, as a leader, how do I get people without appearing as the demanding guy that's cracking the whip, that just I'm going to break everybody's head open and be mad and throw things, kind of a sentiment. How do I get them to engage, be out of desire, right? How do I get them to do that? Pull instead of push. And I recognized real quickly that this accountability piece is something that's just lacking in across many spectrums. So what did I do? As any entrepreneur does, I popped up and I said, well, I'm going to develop an app. And so as you and I were talking here before this meeting, that's exactly what I did. I developed an Own Your Revenue. That's the name of my process, Own Your Revenue app, that actually takes into account the ability to engage individuals, to bring them to the table, to ask very probing questions throughout a process, through a system that brings, I'm truly convinced that every employee of team member of any company, they've got gold nuggets in their mind, right? That, they know, it might be deeper buried than some others, but they've got something somewhere. And trying to find it, that's part of the chore, right? As an owner, as a leader, is trying to say, hey, how do I get the gold nuggets from Billy? And how do I get them from Susan? And how do I get them from Doug? And then bring them all together. That's the challenge of an owner, of a leader, is to go get those things, like you said, without cracking the whip. How do I bring them cognitively to the table, to bring their nuggets of wisdom, to bring their ideas, so that they engage and can be held accountable to it? So that's exactly why I developed this app, is for that purpose, to be able to bring these individuals to the table, to be able to get their ideas, to be able to quantify their ideas, and at the same time be able to create a method so that they participate in solving for those ideas, right? And so that engagement, bringing people to the table to engage. You talked about procedures. That's the same thing, whether I was at Department of Defense or whether we're at McDonald's. That is one common foothold across any successful business, is their standard procedures. There's always a way to do things, and it's spelled out. I have a phrase that I always use, and I say, if it's not written down, it's a liability. And if it is written down, it's an asset. And so as business owners, we want to create assets, not liabilities. So the more that we can take our own writings as well as those of our team members, our employees, and write those things down such that we're creating those standards, those procedures, that's going to lead to, like what you said, how do I get those people involved? Well, yeah, enable them to be able to create those standards, to create those procedures for the solving of the problems to the goal that you've already been able to find within their minds.
I find the bigger the organization, the less connected the man doing the work is, woman doing the work is to leadership, and the more disconnected I find them. In a smaller organization, what I find is nobody told them what to do. They just expected a result. And they're miraculously going to figure out how. I mean, imagine if we went to McDonald's and said, hey, make me a burger. Here's the kitchen. You can figure this out. We'd all be getting different burgers at different temperatures, different condiments, different sizes, all of that stuff. And so I get it. But the problem that occurs is I'm too busy. I'm too busy to do this right now. And it would just be faster if I made the burger, because I can do it in a minute. It's going to take me half an hour to teach somebody how to make this burger. So what do you tell them?
Well, if it takes a half hour to make one burger, it can also take a half hour to make 100 burgers, or that same half hour for 1,000 burgers. So it really, to me, it comes down to the ability of the owner, of the leader, to see the long-term vision, right? I mean, that's really the requirement. That's the differentiator between a strategic player, the coach, the owner, the board, is they're looking at strategy. They're looking at the long term. They're looking at, how do I increase enterprise value, not just the daily value or the daily production or the daily tasks at hand of what I'm doing, but how do I increase enterprise long term? Most of your listeners, if they're entrepreneurs, at some point in time, they've always got something in the back of their mind as to their exit, right? At some point in time, hey, when I turn this age, or when my company gets to this size, they've kind of got a finish line that's out in front of them. And some of them may not even have any idea where that is, but it's out there in time. And eventually I'll get there. But as you look at that, being able to realize where true value lies, yeah, you're right. It might take you a half hour, but are we losing, or are we gaining by investing that half hour? And to me, that's it shouldn't be a difficult argument that we actually plan those things. But you're absolutely right. Most of the time when I go through, part of my exercises when I go through time use and how you're leveraging your own time as a leader, is that aspect, that piece right there. Hey, where do you find time as the leader to be the leader? And it's, well, I'm already working 75 hours a week, but all of those 75, I don't have any time where I'm actually being the leader, working on the company. So to me, I think, how do you find the time? You make the time. You realize that it's a priority. We all have the regular phrase, right? We all have 24 hours a day. It's just how you choose to leverage that, how you choose to put what is most important right now in front of you. What is actually going to move the needle? If I spend a whole day with an employee so that I don't have to spend time doing the actual task the rest of this week, the rest of the month, the rest of the year, how much did that just earn me, right? To me, that's a day well spent. And if it's planned, then even more so, right? So that would be my short answer.
And they're supposed to be leaders, not doers. All right. So that makes a lot of sense. And my 2 cents on this is, if you're going to train one person, make it into a system. What I mean by that is, if you're showing somebody how to do something, screen record it, video it, record it audio, and have AI build you a process for it. And that is literally how this stuff is done. We've got so many tools today that will do all of this for you and help you, that it just blows my mind more people don't do it. I use Plaude. Plaude sits on the back of my phone, or I can carry it around, and it will record everything I say. There's tons of other ones like it. But if you're sitting there and explaining it, that's perfect for catching verbal. Your phone is a perfect video camera. You don't need a studio, right? A screen recorder, if you're doing stuff on a computer, just grab all the pieces and then throw it into AI and say, organize my mess and turn it into a training. Here's the second half of this. Give all of that to the person you just trained and said, follow this. And if it doesn't work, fix the damn system and update it and make my videos look better. And when you're done, here's where we put stuff. And then when they leave and the next person comes, you go over there. It's all laid out. Call me if something doesn't work.
I love that. I absolutely love that. That was, as mentioned, if it's not written down, and when I say written down, it could be recorded. It could, if it's not in a place that's accessible, it's a liability to you. Whatever it is, it's a liability. Someone's going to get hurt. You're going to lose clients. You're going to have jobs that go over. You're going to have whatever it is that your business is in, it's going to be chaos. And the form of
going
it's going to be more chaos, right?
It's already chaos.
It's already chaos. And you're spot on, but starting somewhere. Okay, so the video isn't cinematic. Who cares? But something is better than nothing. I mean, you're spot on. Hey, come through, put together the procedure. Yes, it's not going to be perfect. It may not account for all the nuances of whatever you're doing, but it's going to account for something. And then you're going to be able to start a standard, and someone can work with that standard. And when they find ways to improve it, they can improve that procedure. They can make the company continually better. And that part, that's where you get people to engage, right? When they have something that they see as a procedure. Hey, I got these 24 steps that we're supposed to do, and it's outlined. Rocky showed me how to do this, and Rocky showed me how to do that. Well, guess what? Step 14 is just kind of oddball. I don't think it's needed. We're using a different tool now. Maybe it needs to be 3 steps within that one now because we're using something. Oh, great! Then change it, update it, and you hit the nail on the head because you're empowering the individual to make those improvements, right? Improvements to a procedure is an improvement to the business, which is an improvement to the company's profit every single time. And that is a pattern. That system of continually improving on those patterns, on your procedures, that's gold in recovering more profits and reducing the chaos in any business.
It also makes the business more sellable with a higher multiple because you can hand somebody our process. And for those of you crazy enough to think you're going to franchise, you already have your franchise manual now because you have a process and a system to sell.
Yep.
Or you could do something else with it. But now you actually have a sellable asset, because if you're teaching people how to put a roof on, right? Now you've got videos of how you put roofs on. You could sell that to somebody else. How do you install a roof? Watch our videos. They'll show you exactly what to do. Someone's like, "Oh, I'll pay you for that." Great. Now I've got a new stream of income. And there we go. People don't realize that's really where the gold is. It's in showing other business owners how to do stuff versus trying to do it yourself the hard way. You get margin there, and you get leverage, and you get scalability.
I love your term leverage, right? If you sit back and I've tried to do this exercise myself at times with my own business. I'm getting better at it. It's something that I didn't frankly do early on in my career, and is learning to look for leverage. So the visual that comes to my mind, have you ever seen the old Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah.
With Dorothy and they go up and you've got the mechanical head of when they're in the wizard for the first time. And then it shows this old guy in a mustache and he's just pulling all these gauges and these levers, just trying to, very similarly, that's sometimes what we feel like as a business owner. We've got so many different levers. We're just pulling all these different things and we're pushing buttons, but we never give ourselves enough time to actually look and see what lever 1 did, what lever 2 does, what lever 3 is going to do for this or going for that, and being able to understand the consequences of each lever. And so as leaders, that's our responsibility, is to look into our companies and say, what are the levers I'm going to pull? Where am I going to put my time and my effort to? Because like you said, if I'm putting my time to doing the task versus working on the business, on teaching the task so that other 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people can do it, then I'm pulling the wrong lever, right? I'm pulling definitely those wrong levers. And so I love your point on pulling levers.
And so in my book that you can get for free if you go to the website, chapter 7 has the 16 financial levers. And then you immediately know, hey, if I do this with this lever, what is the expected outcome? And when you start to play with it, you're like, ooh, that lever, you just move it a little bit and the profit doubles. Let's go figure out how to move that lever. And that's the way it works. But you got to slow down and you got to do it. I noticed you said one thing in some of the stuff I was reading prior. It's how do you spot busy but not working? Because I know a lot of companies are very, very busy, but I know by looking at their P&L and their labor efficiency ratios, they're not working.
That is time cards, right? Use of time. We're sitting here talking about leverage. Now, we can talk about leverage of time in 2 ways. One, we can talk about leverage in time of the leadership, right? Of the owners of the leadership team. Are they actually, to me, time is going to magnify. It's either going to expedite our efforts or it's going to be the executioner, right? It's either going to help and address our efforts because we're using time as a leverage, or it's going to execute us. I've got one of my clients, they've got about 100 employees. They're doing about $40 million a year. And the owner wanted me to have a conversation with the general manager. And general manager in that company is kind of like the COO. And I spoke to him. This was literally last month. So I got a text from him, I don't know, a week and a half ago. And hey, let's set up a time. He sends me the text and he says, I've put in 375 hours in January. And he says, and I did exactly what you did. I had to go back and look at the math, and I'm like, how many hours are in the month? How does that even happen? I put in 375 hours, and then he proceeds. This is the COO, in essence, of a company that's got 100 people, and there's $40 million in revenue every year. And he says, I got it written down. He says, I'm not really sure what is expected of me.
to work 40 hours. That's the expectation.
375 hours he put in January, and his comment was, I'm not really sure what is expected of me.
Is that the wrong person, wrong seat? Or is it no clarity of what the position is supposed to be?
We, following that response to me, of course, that led to a conversation with the owner, exactly that question. We had a couple of other conversations, one about that individual, but this led to a little bit of a different conversation. And one of the aspects when I consult with businesses is we all have this thing called an org chart, right? An organizational chart. And the org chart is usually dictated by the people that are in the company. Hey, here's the president, and here's the VPs, and here's the superintendents, and here's the people who manage HR, and here's the people who. And while useful, I think that the org chart, the traditional org chart, the way that it's presented is restricting us. It's not allowing us to actually do what we need to do typically. And what I mean by that is I always ask a question of any business. Usually my first question straight out of the gate is, what problem do you solve that no one else does? Right? When I ask that question, usually I get this kind of long answer, 15 different bullets. Well, I do this and this, and I do this and this, and I do this and this, and I do this and this. That wasn't the question. I wasn't asking what you do. But my question is, what problem do you solve that no one else does?
Cash flow and profit.
It's cash flow and profit. How are you helping someone else's cash flow and profit? Because if you're not helping someone else's cash flow and profit, then what problem are you solving, right? But to that point, that same question to me applies to an org chart. The instruction that I gave to this president here of this $40 million company was, I want you to go back and recreate your org chart, but don't use names, don't use positions and titles. I simply want you to use what problems are being solved, right? You need to solve this problem. Boom. This is the problem being solved. Okay. What's another problem that needs to be solved? Of course, these are internal things, right? A problem that needs to be solved. Hey, we need to be able to invoice our clients on a regular basis, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's the problem. I've got to do invoicing, right? Another problem. And you just go through the company. What are the problems that you have to solve? And then once you've got that written out, once you've got that clear in your own mind, you can go back and say, okay, well, this problem requires 2 people, 4 people, 10 people, 1 person. Maybe these 3 problems can be done by 1 person. And then you go about organizing it in such a way that you assign people to those problems. So your question was spot on. Is that a personnel issue, or is it a clarity issue on the problem that needs to be solved? And in this case, it's proving to be a little bit of both, frankly. So the personnel as well as the problem being solved does that person have the skill set to actually solve the problem, or do we need to make a little bit of adjustment change, right? And so absolutely, we're going through that with that client. But to answer your question for anybody else that's listening, is 100%. We've got to be able to see things. That's our job as owners and leaders, is to be able to see things for the reasons that they're supposed to exist. And in this case, what problem is being solved?
In the world of EOS traction, does the person have the ability, the capacity, and the desire to do the job? And if they're missing any one of those 3, you got the wrong person in the job. And I think too often as small business owners, we promote people beyond their capability. We just did an episode last week, Who's Your Mic? And Who's Your Mic is, as you know, in small business, it's the spouse's family member and your college buddy and
the one that needs the favor.
Yeah, somebody needed a favor, and the next thing you know, you've got all these people who aren't doing the greatest job dragging your company down. You wonder, and you don't have, you just got to make the call at that point. I think, when it really becomes clear as day is when you go to sell and you're like, wow, I've been having this guy on my payroll at $60,000. I get a 4X multiple. And because I had him on my payroll and did a favor, it just cost me 240 grand on the sell because he didn't provide any value to the company. And that's with just a 4X multiple. You get a better multiple. Yeah, that's something to cry over. Get him off the books, pay him out of your pocket. I don't know what to tell you, but that's not the way to do it.
Nice little severance package will go a long way, right?
Exactly. And that's what it is. So let's kind of take a step back. I mean, a big part of what you do is helping people find the patterns to own their revenue. So just take a moment and explain that at least.
A moment to explain that. As I traveled, one of my responsibilities and where I kind of really started developing this skill set is after I did my engineering work, I migrated to the world of business development and created my first company wherein I was responsible for the international business development of an international organization that worked in training and developing companies and their workers in the industrial sector. So, think of, big industrial mines and processing facilities, things of that nature. So I would go around and I would do these audits and we'd have these war rooms. You've been in war rooms before where the whiteboards are, basically the wall. They even put special paint on the walls and you just go to town. Red markers and blue markers and greens and purples all over the place. And I'd go in and I'd do these audits and these evaluations, and I'd show them over days, sometimes weeks, what we would be finding and everything as I was interviewing and observing and going through just all of the different aspects. And what I've learned from those things, I've brought back to this process to be able to quickly and efficiently go into companies to do these audits and evaluations internally and to showcase and pull out the different patterns. And I call them patterns because they're either patterns of waste, they're patterns of chaos, they're patterns of good things and, for future opportunities that exist. Patterns exist all over the place and in all different segments of your business. They can exist on the HR, they can exist on the production line, they can exist in the leadership roles, on your labor employees on the floor, wherever it is. Patterns can exist literally anywhere. And what I do with my process is we go through and we also segment those out per areas. And I've learned, again, another pattern about business is all patterns can fit within 7 different areas, right? And not to get too technical, but I call it PEPSLIM: people, equipment, process, leadership, strategy, leadership, inventory, money. And all of our patterns can fit within those segments. So as we do the audit, as we do perform this evaluation, we're able to break down our company into manageable chunks. We're actually able to see, okay, do we have more of a strategy issue? Do we have more of a people issue? Do we have more of a process, maybe a money issue? And as we can segment that allows us, it empowers us, right? Because clarity is power. So the more power that we can get, the more clarity we can generate. That's, clarity is power for action. So it permits us the ability to take action on those patterns, to actually turn a chaotic situation within our people, within our leadership, within our money or process, and turn that into something where we're actually going to realize change. We're going to realize a profit, instead of continually turning that negative, hey, do we need more people? No, maybe we just need training. Or in your case, maybe we need to get rid of somebody. Like that. That might be a real thing. We look at it and say, hey, we actually need to make a decision to get rid of it. So when we break things down so it's visible, you can see the areas, you can see the different effects. You're taking those, we're quantifying them, how big or how small the issue is and what the levels of urgency are. And this is the reason for that app, by the way. But as we go through and as we do this, and we can now see it, it's right in front of us, it's tangible, it actually means something to us, and it empowers us to make decisions, to take action, to get rid of Billy because Billy's a boat anchor, or to promote, Johnny because Johnny's got some freaking good ideas and we need to use that. We need to change some things. And so it reveals those patterns and those peoples and those steps forward. And when we do that, we're realizing literally additional profits. We're not changing anything. We're not, unless what we found dictates that we change and add more people or something to that effect. But usually it's doing it with the same team that you already have. We're just refining your systems. We're refining your process. We're filling in the voids that exist to remove the chaos. And when we do that, every single time we've done this, it's always, always, always a positive result to the tune of 7 figures or more within a year for every company I've ever worked with so far.
And I agree with you. What really kind of pops into my head is most business owners are great at what they do, but what they do is not run a business. They deliver what their clients need. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you also need to run the business. And so either hire a CEO or learn how to do these things so you can do them. And you can take time off and enjoy life and have fun because that's what it's supposed to be when you go into business.
Well, you're supposed to turn that profit. I mean, if anybody tells me that their plan when they started their business was to be working 80 plus hour weeks, I don't know anybody that was their plan. Hey, I'm going to start my business. I realize it's going to come with a sacrifice, but 5 years into it, 10 years into it, I want to be working 80 plus hour weeks. That doesn't exist. It doesn't even make sense. So to your point, 100%, when I found, generally speaking, there are CEOs that are good in certain realms, that 0 to 10 million or that 1 to 10 million range. Sometimes that guy is not right for the 10 to 30, 40, 50. And the guy that's perfectly, not perfectly, but sits very well in the 10 to 40, he's not right for the 40 to 100. There's different level people that have different skill sets. And so to your listeners, if you're a company, if you're an owner that you're sitting there and saying, well, I'm not sure that I'm that guy. Okay, great. That you have now crossed the line. You've crossed the threshold that most owners don't ever get to, right? Make that decision, hire the right people that are then going to be able to do those things for you. Sometimes I see it often as a kind of a consultancy, kind of a board. Usually that's kind of the way it starts. A CEO says, hey, I want to get there, but I've never really done it. I'm not sure. I haven't been a part of that. I need a little bit of help. And he hires somebody with help. And then they get things in order. Like you said, get your house in order. And as you're starting to do that, you're realizing, hey, we're going to need this problem solved. If we look at our org chart and we're identifying it by problems that need to be solved, there's this void here. Okay, let's look now for that, and let's go find that person that's going to fill that void. Most of the time, he doesn't already exist within the company. He's going to have to come from somewhere else. And so, but those are, again, if you're going through your process and your strategy, then those are things that are going to come to light so that you can then, hey, let's take that action. and move towards that, moving that needle in that aspect.
Very much so. I think we might have overwhelmed him at this point. So if they'd like to learn more about the app, what you do, find you, how do they do that?
Yep. Just it's right there on my website, 537bd.com. So there's a link right there to the app, to the website, to information about me. Also directly my LinkedIn profile, Rion, Rion. So it is spelled different, like Lion Westfall. I'm on LinkedIn, and so I can be found in any of those places.
Cool. And we will put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Rocky. I appreciate it, brother.
If your business feels chaotic, it's rarely a motivation problem. It's usually a systems problem. Today, we unpacked why accountability is really engagement, how to stop being the bottleneck, and how to document what works so your business can scale without you cracking the whip. You can learn more about Rion and his programs at 537bd.com. We'll put it in the show notes. If you found it helpful, would you do me a favor? Share it with a business owner who's busy as hell, but not seeing the profit. One text message can change someone's profitability. Thanks for listening. Here's to a more profitable week. Tired of scaling and growing beyond your cash? Ready to end the cash flow roller coaster and build real wealth inside and outside your business? We should talk. I serve 7 and 8 figure mission-driven business owners increase their profit and cash flow while working less. We help you build the businesses that run without you, so you work less and make more. Book your discovery call today. There's a link in the show notes. You'll work directly with me as your Chief Profitability Officer. If you're a 6-figure business owner, check out the Profit Blueprint program at profitcomesfirst.com. It's your guided path to mastering your numbers with my assistance at an affordable investment for your revenue. Check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. It covers leading yourself and building the ultimate life in business. There's also a link in the show notes. Thanks for listening to the podcast, where revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have a profitable week.